Hi, this is Karen on lesson 2 on that goes along with my first aid chord kit book. If you'd like to order the book, you can get it on sacramentomusicgroup.com, or there's a link on musicinnewcastle.com with some other links. If you click on tutorials, there's some previous things that we've done on YouTube. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube and you'll get the notifications for all of our upcoming lessons. So this week, on week 2, we are going to discuss page 5, 6, and 7. And it's very short, very easy, but it's really, really important. So keep in mind, we're not going through this really fast. Up to page 13 in this book, I really need you to take your time, study it, and just absorb all of it so we can go on, and everything else after page 13 becomes very easily understood if you take your time. So just because it says it's day 1 for you, it could be week 1. So depending on how much time you have to practice. So enjoy the lesson and just go with it. And I think you're going to find the chords aren't as complicated as you think. Okay, in this lesson we're going to study page 4, 5, 6, and 7. And that's all. 4 pages. And we're going to talk about chords. If you have a piano, we'll talk about those. We're going to talk about keyboards. But all of you should be listening to all of this because you're going to, all of you, be applying it. So we'll now learn to play the chords in the inverted positions. You will find it much easier to change chords without looking up and down. Note the common notes in each chord progression. Piano players. You play the chords inverted, but sometimes it's easier to stay in the root position. Inverted chords sometimes cause the right and left hand to collide. If this happens, let go of the top note of the left hand chord. Other options is to raise the melody 1 octave. Try to keep the chords from sounding deep and muddy. If the chord spans many measures, the piano player will need to repeat the chord occasionally before the next chord appears. Organ and keyboard players. Inverted chords are always better. Split the keyboard and play the chord in the lower range of the keyboard. Practice the chords with automatic rhythms and listen to the orchestral backgrounds. This makes practice fun, and it's a great way to get acquainted with your keyboard. Keyboard and organ players can hold the chord down until the next chord appears. So on a piano, if I hold a chord down, just because of the nature of the piano, when the strings stop vibrating onto the soundboard, there will be no more sound. So if you have a C chord that lasts a long time, you're going to need to repeat it more than it's written in the music until you see the next chord change. On a keyboard or organ, you have more sustained sounds. If you're not playing it in piano mode, you can just hold it and it'll just play on. Okay? So, first thing we need to talk about is finger numbers. The fingers that you use, some teachers are very strict about what fingers you use. I am not. I have finger numbers that I recommend just to make it easier, but everyone's hand's different. I have very little hands, so some of the chords I play differently than someone who would have bigger hands. So let's talk about finger numbers for just a minute. Your thumbs are always finger number 1, always. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so for this purpose, we're only going to be using our left hand. So finger 5 is going to be pretty important. So finger 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and you kind of want to get used to thinking that way. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now, there's been a lot of methods out, and I think I've probably taught all of them. The very first method I saw when I started to play chords was called the pointer system. And we learned that you could play a chord by taking your pointer finger, putting it on the name of the note that you wanted to play, like G. Pointer on G, up 2, down 3. So we learned this little poem. Pointer on G, up 2, down 3. If you wanted to play a C chord, Pointer on C, up 2, down 3. Pointer on F, up 2, down 3. Now that was fine until you got to the end of book 1 and they told you you had to change it. And because it was too hard, you're jumping all over the keyboard just like you are if you're playing the chord in the root position. So, chords have 3 positions. And I call them, and we'll talk about this next week, I call them Bisquick chords because you can make a lot of different things from Bisquick. So once you learn the 7 basic chords and how to spell them, which is really, really important. If I play a C chord and the ingredients are C, E, and G. C, E, G. All right? That's the Bisquick, or the basis for a C chord. You can change it, you can sharp them and flat them and add to them, but a C chord will always be made up of C, E, and G. Always. So, if I want to play, I can play those notes in any order that I choose. I can take this root position, C, E, G, and I can take the C off the bottom and put it on the top. Okay? Now I have C, E, G, it's called inverted. I've turned it over. If I take the E off the bottom and put it on the top, now it's still a C chord, C, E, G, but I've just flipped it over or inverted it. If I take the G off the bottom and put it on the top now, I'm back to the root position. So every chord, note on the bottom, put it on the top. That's called the first inversion. If it's flipped over once, or if you're in a race and there's 3 of you, and you end up, C is on top, you end up on top, then you are first. First inversion. If I flip it over again and the name of the chord is in the middle, if you're in a race and you finish second, this is the second inversion. You're in the middle. All right? Okay. So, piano chords. If you're a piano player and you're just starting, you can play all the chords in the root position. The problem is you're going to get to the place where you're going to find your hands are going to run together. See how close my hands are? Watch this. Now I got to play my chord and I need to play that note. I'm okay if I just take it away. I can do that. But it's going to be better if I move the G chord down here, okay, or play the G chord in a different position. All right? So this is the benefit of learning the chords the way I teach them, because it's going to allow you to be creative. Later on, the chords are going to sound better in different positions. Sometimes the chord sounds nice if you just leave a note out and just play 2 notes of the chord when you're playing a melody. So lots of things that we'll do as we move on. But for now, I think you should start to learn the chords in the root position. Most of the people that write to me are playing on keyboards. And if that's the case, and you're playing with rhythms, and even if you're not, and we'll do a lesson on how to set up your keyboards very shortly here, but I want you to follow me in the inverted lesson, because it's just going to make your playing easier and a lot more comfortable. So, if you go to page 5, you will see keyboard and organ chords. C chord. I want you to play C chord the way the pointer system did it. Pointer on C, up 2, down 3. Now notice I'm down here below middle C. If you get much lower than that, you're going to be in the mud, and we don't want to do that. It gets really low. It sounds awful. So for this week only, we're going to play, find middle C, go down 1 octave, And you're not allowed to go above this F note or below this F note. So the octave of F's that surrounds that C is where you want to stay. Okay? On a keyboard, if you split your keyboard, you want to be down in the chord range. So you want to find the F, and usually most keyboards split at F right here. And you want to stay right in that range. Okay? All right. So you're going to learn to play 3 chords. All hands are different. Most finger numbers are suggested only. Use whatever fingers are comfortable for you. So if you turn the page to page 6, here's your assignment. I want you to learn only 2 chords first. The C chord and the G chord. Now if you play them the cheaty way, you're going to play C chord like this and G chord like this. Or C chord like this and G chord like this. Now, just for a minute, try and do that without looking and be accurate. It's hard, especially if you're reading notes and trying to make this hand play too. So we want to fix them so there's a common note between them. All right? So here's how we're going to do it. You're going to put your left hand, and we're going to use the pointer system. It's going to be the C chord in the second inversion. Left hand, point your finger on C, up 2 with your thumb, and down 3 with your little finger. Okay? So you're going to put your pointer finger on C, up 2, that's an E, and down 3, there's your spelling, G. I would say probably 80% of the time, that's how I play a C chord, especially on a keyboard or organ or a digital piano. All right. Then, remember this poem. Pointer on C, up 2, down 3. Then we're going to learn chords in progression. I remember in lesson 1 I told you if you only learn 1 chord at a time, it's not going to get you anywhere. Chords work in sets, in groups. So it's called a progression. So that day 1, I want you to learn the C chord, and probably 60% of the time if you're playing a song that starts with a C chord, G chord is going to be very prevalent in that song. So you're going to learn the second chord, G. So what it says is hold the little finger and lower the top 2 notes 1 step. Note, the G is the common note in these 2 chords. Do not pick up your little finger. So watch. Here's C chord. G, B, D. Now my little finger's already on G. So all I have to do is pick up my top 2 notes and move them down 1. Top 2 notes. See, I can do that without looking. I don't have to look at all. Now, for some of you that are a little more advanced, you might want to do this with both hands to get your right hand trained, because later on, you're going to play some chords with your right hand if you want to learn how to harmonize under a melody. So why not practice both hands together? Just an octave apart is all we're doing. If you're playing an organ, then add the pedal. C chord, C pedal, G chord, G pedal. Now I mentioned if you're playing on a digital piano with rhythms or a keyboard, and I think next week I'll dig out the keyboard and we'll use it. It's just fun to do this with rhythms. Put your accompaniment button on, turn on some rhythms, and explore all the different rhythms and background patterns while you're doing this boring C and G and C and G. If you're a piano player, you can make it less boring. Just roll them. I think that's what Beethoven was doing when he wrote this song. He was just practicing G chord and C. C chord, G, or roll it. And he had 2 C positions. That's it. So the whole song is C, D, E, F, and G with your right hand, and a C chord and a G chord. Every measure it changes. So see how much fun you can have, and even Beethoven. And you can just tell all your friends, you know, wow, I learned the chords Beethoven used for Ode to Joy. And so that's day 1. And that's the first lesson. 7, page 7 is day 2. We're going to do C to F. All right? So it says hold the middle note, raise the top and the bottom note 1 step. Note, F is the common note in these 2 chords. Do not pick up your second finger. So, now I'm playing F chord here. The middle note now is my common note. And I raise this note up 1 and this note up 1. Look, there's F, A, C. That's an F chord in the first inversion. All right, C chord, F chord. The C chord is G, C, E, and it says on the page, G, C, E, and the F chord is A, C, F. The common note is C. So, okay, now if you look at this diagram, if you can see it, that's why it's kind of important to have the book. You can see that if I play C chord, F chord, C chord, that C is common for all 3 positions, all 3 chords. And then you can see that the G is common from C to G to C. So I can literally play these 3 chords, C, G, C, F, without looking down because of the common notes, the anchor notes that hold them together. So both hands, C, G, C, F, C, G, C, F. I think the guy that wrote, oh, come all ye faithful. Then he played some other ones. But I think he was working on C, F, C, G chords, and out came a song. So this is also the blues progression. So if you're playing F, C, G, C chord, F, C, you could just sit there, you could sound great and you only know 3 chords. So that's it for today. All you're going to do is go up to page 7 and you're going to learn C chord to G and C chord to F. And then practice the little practice thing down here. And remember, try the different rhythms on your keyboard while you're doing it. You can play Latin, you can play jazz, you can play swing, you can play country western, which is my favorite, and just have a blast just learning to play 3 chords. All right, that concludes this lesson, and let's talk about day 1, day 2. Day doesn't necessarily mean a day. It could, depending on your schedule, it could take you a week to do that page. But take it slow and learn it. Up to page 13 in this book is really, really important. So there's a lot of books you can buy and a lot of methods that you can use. This one is the legitimate, really fast, good way to learn how to play chords. And when you're done, you're going to understand where they come from, how they're formed, the key signatures, and how to transpose, all kinds of really cool things. But for some of you, up to page 13 and maybe a few minor chords after that is really all you'll ever need. So don't think that you have to get very complicated to enjoy playing your music. I've based my whole career on teaching adults how to play music in group and in private lessons. And all most people want to do now is just play and have fun. They've always wanted to learn, didn't get a chance or didn't want to when they were kids, and now they have time. So enjoy where you're at on the way to where you're going, and I'll see you next lesson.